A sharp, electronic beep pierced the dead silence of the Windsor Castle security checkpoint. On the high-definition monitor, a glaring red notice flashed 3 words, flashing "Access denied." In an instant, the heavy oak gates locked shut, stranding Queen Camilla's grandson on the cold cobblestones outside and ending an era of borrowed privilege. This swift administrative blow landed under the cover of darkness. Prince William had quietly exercised supreme authority granted by the letter's patent for internal administration, a constitutional mechanism signed by King Charles during his cancer treatment to delegate house control to his heir. With a single authorization, the Prince of Wales severed the unmonitored access the non-royal Parker Bowles lineage had enjoyed for years under the guise of family closeness. Behind the reinforced glass of the guardroom stood Princess Anne. Watching her nephew's stepson frozen in shock, her posture remained unyielding, her expression set like carved granite. In royal protocol, the silence of the king's sister carries the weight of a formal decree. Her refusal to intervene signaled an absolute endorsement, meaning the era of shadowy favors reliant on the Queen's influence was over. King Charles still reigns, but the strict rules of a streamlined, uncompromising monarchy have already arrived. Was Prince William's decisive move a stroke of institutional genius to protect the crown's integrity, or a cold, calculated strike against his stepmother? If you support William's relentless defense of the monarchy, comment 1 below. If you believe this decision was overly ruthless and driven by personal vengeance, comment 2. The quiet fracturing of the royal inner circle began with a single lapse in judgment during a scorching, humid afternoon at Windsor Castle. It was the previous summer, a time when King Charles III was undergoing the most sensitive, strictly guarded phases of his ongoing cancer therapy. Royal doctors had imposed near-absolute isolation to protect the vulnerable monarch, making privacy not merely a personal preference, but a matter of state security. Access to the private gardens was restricted to essential medical staff, senior working royals, and trusted personal attendants who had undergone rigorous background checks. Yet, those strict security boundaries blurred for Tom Parker Bowles. As the son of Queen Camilla, he had long enjoyed the effortless perks of his mother's elevated status within the royal household. He carried a customized, leather-bound royal pass stamped with gold wax, a rare physical key that granted unescorted movement through restricted gates and private quarters. Armed with this token of unearned privilege, he walked through the secluded East Terrace gardens, treating the sovereign's private sanctuary as his personal playground. Taking out his smartphone, he snapped a seemingly innocent photo of the manicured lawn and vibrant floral displays, uploading it directly to his public social media profile without obtaining clearance from the Royal Communications Office. What appeared to be a harmless picture of historic grounds was a catastrophic security breach. High-resolution lenses and digital enhancement caught far more than rolling hills and blooming roses. In the far background, sitting quietly on a wooden bench, was the frail figure of the sick king, looking remarkably exhausted and visibly diminished by his aggressive treatments. Even worse, the wide-angle shot inadvertently captured the concealed vantage points of tactical protection officers. The strategic layout of sniper posts, armed sentry rotations, and newly installed surveillance sensors lay completely exposed to anyone with an internet connection. Within 48 hours, tabloid news outlets and international gossip blogs pounced on the image. Editors zoomed in on the monarch's haggard expression, launching a sensationalist storm of speculation about his imminent demise and questioning the incompetence of royal security protocols. Panic rippled through the corridors of Buckingham Palace. Queen Camilla scrambled to contain the fallout, ordering her son to delete the post immediately, while trying to downplay the incident to her husband as a harmless mistake by a well-meaning civilian. She attempted to use her influence to smooth over the tension, hoping the news cycle would simply pass. But the damage was done. Gossip columnists analyzed the glaring weakness of the crown, and royal commentators debated whether the palace had lost control of its own perimeter. Standing in the center of the storm was Prince William. The Prince of Wales did not raise his voice or engage in petty arguments. Instead, he treated the leak as an intolerable threat to the survival of the institution. For William, the incident proved a dangerous reality. Granting high-level security passes to non-working relatives created an unpredictable hazard where the privacy of the sovereign could be exploited for public clout. He recognized that allowing unvetted family members to wander through secure zones compromised the entire protection apparatus managed by the Metropolitan Police. William moved swiftly to turn this public relations disaster into an administrative advantage. He presented a comprehensive intelligence dossier to King Charles, highlighting the dangerous vulnerability caused by unmonitored family access. He pointed out that the public trust in the monarchy was already fragile, and another leak could permanently damage the crown's reputation during a delicate transition period. Facing the stark reality of his compromised safety and the relentless media intrusion, the king reluctantly agreed to sign a critical constitutional document known as the Letters Patent for Internal Administration. This legal instrument operates under strict constitutional limits. It explicitly denies the heir any power over state affairs, parliamentary legislation, or international diplomacy. However, within the physical boundaries of royal properties, the document transfers supreme administrative command to the Prince of Wales. Under these terms, William gained sole authority to restructure estate security, manage house personnel, and oversee residence privileges across all crown properties, including Windsor Castle, Buckingham Palace, and the Sandringham estate. To fully understand the weight of this document, one must examine royal protocol. A letters patent is a legal instrument issued by the monarch as an exercise of the royal prerogative. In this context, delegating internal administration means that William's orders regarding security clearance hold the same legal force as a direct command from the king himself. Neither palace staff nor senior family members could appeal his administrative decisions without challenging the monarch's official decree. By securing this official authorization, William effectively removed the management of internal passes from the Queen's influence. Armed with legal authority, he prepared to sweep away the vague privileges that had allowed outsiders to treat the royal household as their own. He instructed the Royal Protection Command to audit every active security badge, establishing a clear line between working members of the royal family and private citizens. The stage was set for a ruthless enforcement of security that would leave no room for compromise, setting off a chain of events that would soon shock the entire palace establishment. Prince William's underlying motivation was fundamentally structural, driven by an unyielding determination to implement the long-discussed model of a slimmed-down monarchy. Operating under intense scrutiny from a British public burdened by economic pressure and rising living costs, the heir understood that every unearned privilege granted to private individuals chipped away at the crown's moral authority. The modern tax-paying populace demanded transparency, austerity, and absolute accountability from the ancient institution. Allowing extended family members to enjoy royal perks without performing official public duties was no longer a minor diplomatic concession. It was a glaring vulnerability that threatened the long-term survival of the House of Windsor. William viewed the preservation of the throne not through the lens of family harmony, but through the cold reality of institutional relevance and public trust. With the precise scope of authority granted by his father through the Letters Patent for Internal Administration, William now held the unquestioned legal backing to issue formal palace executive orders. These administrative mandates gave him the official power to bypass informal domestic arrangements while remaining fully compliant with constitutional law. In the intricate framework of British constitutional monarchy, a palace executive order serves as a binding administrative decree within the royal household, carrying the direct authority of the sovereign's office. He recognized that issuing high-level security passes to private citizens, such as Queen Camilla's adult children and extended relatives, created an unacceptable operational loophole. In an era dominated by digital media, intrusive technology, and relentless paparazzi, permitting unvetted family members to freely navigate secure royal quarters transformed the monarch's private life into a commodity vulnerable to public exposure and commercial exploitation. Under the strict operational guidelines of London's Metropolitan Police Service, royal clearance status is designed for a singular purpose: to facilitate the official duties of working members of the royal household who actively serve the state. The specialized protection apparatus, managed by the Royalty and Specialist Protection Command, was never intended to function as a private concierge service or a status symbol for non-working extended family. William resolved to restore these regulations to their original, uncompromising standard. He argued in internal security briefings that security clearances must be strictly aligned with constitutional duty, effectively ending the era of blurred boundaries where personal affection dictated security access across royal estates. When the formal deactivation order was transmitted to the Royal Protection Command at Scotland Yard, protection officers had no choice but to enforce the directive immediately. The digital codes linked to the Parker Bowles family credentials were wiped from the palace security server within minutes, rendering their physical passes completely useless at every biometric scanner across Windsor, Sandringham, and Buckingham Palace. This swift administrative execution completely disarmed Queen Camilla, stripping her of any procedural grounds to protest or appeal. Because the directive was issued under the delegated authority of the monarch's own signature, any formal objection by the Queen would amount to a direct challenge against King Charles's official royal decree, creating an unbridgeable constitutional conflict within the royal marriage. By transforming a coveted symbol of prestige into a useless piece of plastic, Prince William executed a flawless administrative maneuver. He drew upon the unassailable power of institutional law, blending cold constitutional logic with the quiet, lingering memories of his late mother, Princess Diana, who had once been systematically sidelined and exposed by informal palace dynamics. William remembered how vulnerable his mother had been when surrounded by an apparatus that prioritized internal royal politics over absolute protection. Armed with official authorization, William acted with absolute precision, closing the security loophole cleanly, permanently, and without leaving behind a single legal or procedural flaw for his stepmother to exploit. The tension reached its absolute peak near the vaulted stone entry, leading into the St. George's Hall complex at Windsor Castle. It was early evening, just moments before a major internal rehearsal for an upcoming ceremonial state event. Tom Parker Bowles arrived with his usual casual confidence, stepping off the cobblestone courtyard toward the heavy oak entrance. He reached into his coat pocket, pulling out the custom leather-bound royal pass dangled on a silk cord. To him, the pass was an unquestioned entitlement, a key that had seamlessly opened every door within the royal estate since his mother's coronation. Approaching the biometric security turnstile, he pressed the card against the sleek glass sensor, expecting the familiar green light and the soft mechanical click of unlocking bolts. Instead, a harsh, sustained electronic chime echoed off the medieval stone walls. On the digital display screen, bold red lettering flashed 3 unyielding words: "Access denied." Confused, he wiped the card against his sleeve and pressed it firmly against the glass a second time. The system responded with the exact same jarring alarm, triggering an amber warning light inside the security post. Before he could call out to the duty officers, the heavy, reinforced glass doors behind the security checkpoint slid open with a controlled hiss. Prince William stepped into the foyer. Clad in a tailored dark suit, the heir to the throne moved with an imposing, quiet stillness. Without saying a word to the surrounding protection officers, William raised his hand slightly, giving a silent signal to the chief security coordinator. Within seconds, heavy security shutters slid down at both ends of the stone corridor, locking down the vestibule and isolating the two men in a soundproof, private space. Tom attempted to laugh off the situation, offering a casual explanation about a system glitch or a faulty chip. He cited his mother's standing within the household, suggesting the guard captain be called to override what he assumed was a minor technical error. But his words faded into the cold silence of the room. Prince William stood unmoving, his posture rigid and his eyes sharp, cold, and entirely devoid of warmth. William stepped closer, placing a thick, leather-bound folder containing the letters patent directly onto the glass counter between them. He did not raise his voice. His words were low, deliberate, and delivered with devastating precision. He informed Tom that there was no technical error, no malfunction, and no system glitch. The security system was working perfectly. The access privileges granted to non-working relatives had been permanently revoked by an administrative order issued directly under the delegated authority of the Crown. Under Royal Security Protocol, an expired or revoked credential must be surrendered immediately to the presiding authority to prevent unauthorized reproduction or security breaches. William extended an open palm across the counter. He demanded that Tom hand over the leather-bound pass himself, making it clear that the era of borrowed prestige and unearned access had come to an absolute end. He emphasized that Windsor Castle was the seat of a sovereign institution, not a private social club, and that the laws governing royal security would no longer contain exceptions for the Parker-Bowles family. Tom's face flushed with deep embarrassment. He looked toward the security monitors, searching for a way out or an officer who might intervene, but every guard stood at rigid attention, eyes fixed straight ahead, obeying the command of the future king. Recognizing the complete futility of his position and the absolute legal trap constructed around him, Tom slowly unclasped the silk cord. With a trembling hand, he placed the coveted leather pass onto the glass counter. Prince William picked up the pass without a word. He turned toward a wall-mounted security unit behind the desk, a heavy-duty industrial card shredder used exclusively for destroying high-level cryptographic badges. William inserted the leather card into the slot. A sharp, grinding mechanical hum filled the room as the steel blades chewed through the leather, gold wax seal, and embedded microchips, reducing the ultimate symbol of insider privilege into worthless, shredded debris inside the locked disposal box. The physical destruction of the card sealed the confrontation, executing the expulsion on the spot and leaving no doubt about who now controlled the gates of Windsor Castle. The confrontation at the inner gate had unfolded in near silence, but its impact reverberated through the stone corridors of Windsor Castle. Yet, Prince William and Tom Parker-Bowles were not the only figures present during those decisive moments. Standing just beyond the shadow of the vaulted archway, partially obscured by the thick masonry of the guard post, was Princess Anne. As the gold stick-in-waiting and the ceremonial head of royal security forces, the Princess Royal possessed an unassailable stature within the House of Windsor. Having completed nearly 500 official public engagements in the past year alone, her devotion to the crown was unmatched, making her the ultimate guardian of institutional discipline. As the mechanical hum of the card shredder faded, Tom turned his eyes toward Princess Anne, silently desperate for an intervention. He looked for a sign of aristocratic solidarity, a word of restraint, or even a diplomatic gesture from the woman who had known his mother for decades. But the Princess Royal remained motionless. She stood perfectly upright, her shoulders back, her hands folded firmly across her chest in her signature posture of uncompromising authority. Her gaze was cool, sharp, and detached, offering not a single flicker of sympathy or hesitation as she observed the humbled intruder standing before the future king. Under royal protocol, the gold stick in waiting serves as the personal protector of the monarch and the defender of royal security. In this capacity, Princess Anne held immense informal authority over house operations. Had she spoken a single word of objection or raised a hand to pause the proceedings, the administrative momentum would have stalled. Instead, her absolute, immovable silence acted as a monumental judicial verdict. By refusing to step forward, she cast an unequivocal vote of confidence in Prince William's ruthless enforcement of security boundaries. Her silence was a deliberate, strategic endorsement of William's vision for the monarchy. Princess Anne understood better than anyone that the loose, informal gray zones created during her brother King Charles's reign had become a dangerous liability. The practice of granting high-level security clearance to non-working relatives out of personal affection or marital compromise eroded the core integrity of the crown. She recognized that a modern constitutional monarchy, operating under the relentless scrutiny of a skeptical tax-paying public, could not survive if it indulged in nepotism or blurred the lines between state duty and private privilege. To Anne, the preservation of the throne required an iron discipline that transcended family feelings. She knew that if the crown failed to establish clear, unyielding boundaries, it would forfeit its moral authority and public respect. Public trust was fragile, and the institution could not afford another scandal born from lax oversight or leaked private moments. William's willingness to execute a clean administrative strike against his stepmother's family demonstrated the exact strength of leadership necessary to secure the monarchy's future, and Anne was fully prepared to back him. As the duty guard stepped forward to escort Tom Parker Bowles toward the outer courtyard gates, the heavy oak doors shut firmly behind him, ending his access to the royal interior. Only then did Princess Anne step out from the shadows of the archway, her boots clicking softly against the polished stone floor. She walked over to where Prince William stood beside the security counter. She did not offer praise, nor did she engage in emotional commentary about the family rift that this action would inevitably cause. Instead, Princess Anne looked at her nephew, paused for a fleeting second, and gave a single, firm, deliberate nod of approval. That simple gesture carried immense weight within the palace hierarchy. It signaled that the old guard, represented by the most hard-working and respected royal of her generation, stood shoulder to shoulder with the new heir. Her approval officially shattered any remaining hope Queen Camilla might have had to rally senior royals against William's directive, permanently sealing the fate of extended family privileges inside Windsor Castle. As the first pale rays of dawn filtered through the tall, arched windows of the palace private secretary office, a quiet, high-stakes negotiation unfolded completely away from the public eye. The room was bathed in a cold blue morning light, entirely devoid of warm tea service or polite domestic pleasantries. Sitting across from each other at a polished mahogany conference table were Prince William and Queen Camilla. Between them lay no personal correspondence, emotional pleas, or family photographs, but only thick, stapled stacks of legal documents, financial spreadsheets, and constitutional briefing papers. Both figures understood that the frail health of King Charles III made any open household conflict an unacceptable risk to his fragile recovery, forcing this inevitable reckoning to happen in absolute secrecy before the rest of the palace awoke. Prince William approached the meeting with cold, calculated precision, leveraging a fundamental constitutional reality that governs the future of the British monarchy. Under royal legal tradition and statutory framework, the elevated status, public allowances, and official privileges of a queen consort are tied directly to the lifetime of the reigning monarch. Upon the passing of King Charles, Camilla's legal standing will instantly shift to that of Queen Dowager. In this future capacity, her annual state allowance, her official police protection detail, her office staffing budget, and her continued right to reside at royal estates like Ray Mill House or Clarence House will no longer be guaranteed by her husband, but will depend entirely on the explicit approval and signature of the new sovereign, King William V. The Prince of Wales used this stark structural truth as an immovable financial and legal lever. He laid out a detailed blueprint for the next reign, making it clear that the future royal household would operate under strict institutional boundaries and uncompromising fiscal discipline. William presented Queen Camilla with a binding, confidential covenant designed to settle the internal family hierarchy permanently, without troubling his recovering father. The document outlined a clear ultimatum. William would officially guarantee her a generous, lifelong financial annuity funded through the duchy income, along with permanent, unbothered residential rights at her preferred private estates, ensuring her total financial comfort, personal safety, and dignity as Queen Dowager. However, that lifelong security came with a non-negotiable price. In exchange for these future guarantees, Queen Camilla had to yield immediately to the present reality. She was required to accept the technological revocation of all security passes held by her children and extended relatives, formally agreeing never to contest the administrative orders issued under the letters Patent for Internal Administration. Furthermore, she had to surrender every remaining physical badge, key card, and vehicle permit assigned to the Parker Bowles family, effectively withdrawing her non-royal lineage to the private margins of society and ensuring they would never again hold unmonitored access to the secure zones of sovereign residences. To understand the sheer weight of this agreement, one must look at the legal mechanics of the Queen Dowager position. Historically, a widowed queen consort holds no formal constitutional role in state affairs or the succession line. Her status is entirely reliant on the goodwill of the reigning monarch and the financial provisions established by Parliament and the Crown Estate. William's covenant effectively codified these future provisions in advance, removing any ambiguity or bargaining power Camilla might have hoped to retain after her husband's death. By forcing her to sign this agreement now, William ensured that the transition of power would be seamless, leaving no room for internal household disputes or competing factions. Queen Camilla sat in complete silence, her hand resting near the edge of the mahogany table as she carefully weighed her remaining options. Having navigated decades of intense public hostility, media storms, and complex royal politics to reach her current position, she was a pragmatic survivor above all else. She knew that her husband was 77 years old and fighting a serious, life-altering illness, and that the real, operational power within the palace had already shifted decisively toward the heir. Looking at the official signature of King Charles on the letters patent, lying beside William's proposed agreement, she realized she held no viable cards left to play. Attempting to overturn William's security decree would trigger a catastrophic public constitutional crisis that she was guaranteed to lose. Her son's careless actions at the East Terrace Gardens had provided William with the ultimate justification to enforce a long-overdue institutional cleanup. Camilla understood that defending her family's unearned perks would alienate the very prince who would soon control her personal future, her housing, and her legacy. Fighting William now would mean risking her own security as a future Queen Dowager for the sake of temporary, symbolic privileges that her adult children did not legally require. The math was brutally simple, and Camilla's political instincts urged her to choose long-term self-preservation over short-term family pride. With quiet resignation and sharp political realism, Queen Camilla picked up a heavy fountain pen and placed her signature on the confidential agreement. By signing the document under the soft morning light, she officially accepted the strict boundaries established by the future king, securing her own future stability while permanently forfeiting her family's unearned privileges within the inner court. She slid the signed pages back across the polished table without offering a verbal defense or demanding an apology. Prince William took the signed papers, reviewed each signature with a sharp eye, and placed them securely inside a locked leather briefcase. He stood up without a word, offering a brief, respectful nod before turning toward the door. The dawn negotiation was over, quietly cementing a structural victory that effectively redrew the lines of power inside Windsor Castle forever, leaving the Parker Bowles family firmly on the outside looking in. Looking back at the entire ordeal, Prince William's decisive action to deactivate the security pass was far more than a routine back-end dispute. It served as the opening salvo, declaring a brand new era for the British monarchy, one defined by streamlined operations, unyielding legitimacy, and a total freedom from personal sentiment. The subsequent grand royal ceremony unfolded with flawless grandeur and absolute solemnity. The security scanning system at Windsor ran with quiet precision, recognizing only active, working royals who bear genuine public duties, such as Prince Edward, Sophie, and Princess Anne. Standing at the center of the palace balcony, Prince William stood alongside a resolute Princess Anne, who held herself upright after another year of tireless service. Her presence served as living proof that a new institutional order had been successfully established with the full backing of the crown's most loyal guardians. Yet, in a quiet corner of the estate, Queen Camilla stood alone by a tall window. She watched the royal motorcade roll away into the distance, fully aware in her heart that her family's chapter of influence within the inner court had permanently closed. In the dark recesses of the Windsor security archives lay the broken leather access pass, a stark symbol highlighting the cold, unforgiving nature of royal duty and the heavy price of power. Did Prince William's early enforcement of iron discipline build a stronger foundation for the future of the monarchy, or will it push internal palace fractures into an unbridgeable divide? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, hit the subscribe button, and turn on notifications to stay tuned for our next deep dive into royal power dynamics.